Rachel Anthony. Welcome back to my channel for another Writing Wednesday. No, not quite. I missed my Writing Wednesday. I'm a little off schedule, but I'm happy you're here. And I wanted to share a little story with you. I get asked often what inspired me to write A Time for Us. And it's a story that is a true story that actually inspired the story. The story is 100% fiction, but the scenario that inspired the story came from a real life experience. And I'm sharing this story because I think as writers, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to come up with some fantastical plots and storylines, and I think a lot of times we just need to draw from our own experiences, our things that have happened to us, things that we've observed, things that we've heard others have experienced. Regardless of the genre you're writing in, part of it, I think, comes from our own experiences, and then we can just kind of build and expound upon that and fictionalize it and make it a good story. So it is actually a Friday night. It is wine night for me. So I figured I would have a glass of wine and share with you the story that inspired A Time for Us. Cheers. So, I started writing A Time for Us in 1987. So that is 39 years ago, almost 40 years ago. And that's where the book kicks off, the story kicks off. And in A Time for Us, the story kicks off with Deborah Brown working in a diner in 1987. Rachel Anthony worked at a fast food restaurant in Clayton, in the same town where Deborah is working. I worked at a fast food restaurant in Clayton in 1987. So similar but different. I was a married mother of 2 little girls at that time, just like Deborah. And there was an event that happened one day, and that kind of shook me a little bit. So I typically worked the breakfast shift at this fast food restaurant, and anyone from Clayton, North Carolina, who knew it back in 1987 knows what fast food restaurant that is, because there was only one at that time, only one fast food chain restaurant in Clayton in 1987. And I worked there. And I worked the breakfast shift, so typically from like 6 till 2 I worked. And one day a gentleman came in, and I was working the line. There was 3 of us, because again, the only fast food restaurant in this town, so we were very busy, especially at breakfast. So we had 3 cashiers working the counter and then 1 cashier working the drive-through. And I worked the drive-through sometime, but on this particular morning I was working the counter. And so all 3 of our lines were to the door. It was very busy. But as I looked up, as I was taking one customer's order, I looked up on the line, because I was to my far right, then there was a middle line, and then there was a line to the far left. And I was working in this line, and then there was a guy in the middle line, kind of midway through the line. I looked up as I was taking my customer's order, and I looked at him, and he was looking at me. He is very much like I described Polly in the book. He was about 5'9", Italian, beautiful tan skin, hazel eyes. He was dressed in like construction clothes. He had on a cap with the name of the construction company that he was working for. So I continued to take my customers' orders and fulfill their orders, and every time I looked up at him, he was looking at me. And then at one point, I bagged the customer's order and turned around, and I didn't see him in that line. And then all of a sudden, I saw he was in my line. So when he finally got to my line, to the counter, he said, "Good morning, Rachel." And I was like, do I know this guy? I know he looks familiar, but do I know him? He seems to know me. The confusion must have been all over my face because he giggled and then pointed at my name tag. And I was like, oh. I admit it, I was like, when I saw you, I thought you looked familiar, but I couldn't place where I knew you. And then you called my name, I thought, oh crap, I do know him, but I just don't remember him. And he was like, no, I don't think we've met, but yeah, I got that same feeling. And so we started chatting. I asked, is he, from around the area? And he told me no. He was just in town helping his friend with a construction project. He lives in Chicago, where he was born and raised. And this was actually his first trip to North Carolina. So I was like, I've never been to Chicago, so I don't know how we could have ever met. And it's so funny because we're going back and forth trying to figure out if we know each other. And there is a line of people, at least 7 or 8 deep, waiting to get their breakfast. And very politely, the guy behind, let's call this guy Fred. The guy behind Fred was like, excuse me, hate to interrupt, but I gotta get to work. Can we wrap up this walk down memory lane? I was like, so sorry. So I ended up taking Fred's order and bagging it up for him. And I remember handing him the bag, and as he took the bag, I didn't quite let it go. And I smiled at him and said, please come back again. And he said, oh, I will. And he did. He was in town for 7 weeks working on this construction project, and he came into this restaurant every Monday through Friday, which is the days that I worked, every Monday through Friday for his breakfast and his lunch. Every day, 5 days a week for 7 weeks, he ate from the same restaurant and always got in my line when he came in. And we would kind of chat and banter, and I would go out into the lobby and, refill coffees, and, we would, have a little flirtatious banter. Very innocent, but it was fun. And he was, like I said, there for 7 weeks. And as he wrapped up his project on his last day, he came into the restaurant holding a huge bouquet of yellow roses. It was 24 yellow roses. And I guess at some point I had told him that yellow was my favorite color at the time. And he said, I didn't want to leave without letting you know how much I appreciated you making my visit into small town America so welcoming and so pleasant. And so I wanted to give you something to remember me by, just in case we ever meet again. And I told him I appreciated it, but I couldn't accept the flowers because my husband would absolutely lose his mind if he knew I was accepting flowers from another man. And he totally understood, but he said, do with them what you will, but I wanted to leave them with you. And so I took them. I thanked him, and I told him, I was like, even after all this time, I still feel like I know you from somewhere. And he said, I feel the same way. He said, I can't shake the feeling that I've met you somewhere. And he kind of shrugged and said, maybe it was in another lifetime. And I said, maybe. And that is what sparked the concept for A Time for Us, which is a book about a couple who finds each other in 1987 and starts having memories of a life they've had before in 1947. So yeah, to wrap up that story, I accepted the flowers, but I did not take them home. I ended up putting them like in a bucket in the break room at the restaurant, and told the girls that, you know, to help themselves, they could take some of the flowers with them. But I did keep one of the flowers, and I still have it to this day. I have it pressed in a book of my favorite poetry. So I often wonder, you know, if he ever thinks of me, if he remembers that encounter. And I kind of fantasize a little bit about him picking up A Time for Us and recognizing that's our story on the page. So, but no, I've never seen him again, never heard from him again. That was, again, almost 40 years ago. But yeah, I started writing A Time for Us after that encounter, and it's an experience that stayed with me and inspired a story that I think is beautiful. So, said all that to say this: as writers, we draw from our own experiences. Again, whether it's things that have happened to us, things we've heard about, things that's happened to our friends. Ultimately, regardless of the genre, fiction, thriller, horror, romance, we take a little bit of ourselves and put on the pages. Granted, most of it, the vast majority of it, is greatly fictionalized, but there's some aspect of ourselves as writers that's always in our stories. So, if you're a writer out there, or an aspiring writer, and you are having, you know, a problem or struggling to find a plot line or a story that you want to write about, just think about some regular encounter that you've had one day, and just expound upon it, fictionalize it, and it can make an amazing story. I can tell you also that for book 2, the sequel to A Time for Us, I am also drawing on some of my own experiences. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but it's drawing from a very tumultuous relationship that I had. So, yeah, I take from your own experiences, put them on the page, build them up, and make an incredible story. You can do it. That is all I wanted to share with you today, and hopefully I'll be back with another Writing Wednesday on a Wednesday. But I think this is going to come out on the day that I record it, which is Friday. And so if you watch this on Friday, have a great weekend. And if not, enjoy it whenever you watch it. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.